Welcome to Happy Media, a podcast where we talk about media that makes us happy. I'm Thaddeus Danquah.
And I'm Ash Beecher.
Ash, how are you?
I am doing well today. I'm feeling good talking to you. I'll say that. It's nice to see your face, always.
Likewise. And I'm excited about this first piece of media that we're going to get into. But before I do, I want to just briefly give an overview of what the show is about. We talk about media, you and I talk about media all the time through just conversation about media that makes us happy, the things that we're watching, movies, shows, and things. And so we decided to turn it into a podcast, and here we are.
Yeah, I think we've been talking about shows and movies that we love for about 5+ years, maybe 5.5 years now.
Yeah.
But I think that what is special and what's exciting about having these conversations with you is that this is a take on particularly the happy side of media. There is so much to be said about all of the things made in the world, but we particularly reflect on things that make us feel happy, cozy, gives us that warm blanket feel that, I think as makers of media, we always strive, we hope our audience feels that way about things that we make.
Exactly. And so I think this gives us a chance to put, our love of watching things and just how much we know, the nerdy side of making things into display. So I'm excited to embark on this journey.
Same. So,
yes,
it's episode 1, and we are starting this conversation with your choice. This isn't to say it's the only thing that comforts you, but we're starting with something, Thaddeus, from your life that brings you comfort and happiness. What did you pick?
Yeah, so I picked the sitcom TheParkers from 1999 to 2004, and I picked it as my first piece of media that we'll be talking about today.
So I had not watched TheParkers before, so you picked 2 particular episodes that we're going to dive into. Do you want to first say which episodes those are?
Yes. So I picked season 1, episode 1, Grape Nuts. And then I picked season 4, I believe it's episode 13, Dead Clown Walking. And I think both of those episodes, because I thought you wouldn't have seen it. So I was like, okay, if I were to give Ash a crash course in TheParkers, what episodes would I choose? And I think those 2 kind of lay out the foundation of what the rest of the show is.
Yeah.
So that's a good. Would you say that's the case from what you got from it?
I think so. I think these were really great choices. I really, I think it was, and we'll get into them, but I think episode 1 was it's a great example of just setting up the premise of a show and the whys of a show without the pilot episode only relying on the storyline of that why and that setup.
Mm-hmm.
So that was, I think, a great way to be like, this is what this show is about. And then, I really think that episode 13 of season 4, Dead Clown Walking, was then great to talk about where the characters kind of end up going, the storylines that continue, the ones that don't. Just, the humor of it, and some of the classic TV tropes of it in a really warm way, in a way that I enjoyed. So those were good choices for sure.
Thank you. Yeah. So, briefly, because it's a sitcom, we'll get into the summary. So, TheParkers is a sitcom from UPN. It starred Monique, Countess Vaughn, Dorian Wilson, Yvette Wilson, no relation, Jenna Von Oy, Ken Lawson as the cast, and it follows the mother-daughter of Nikki and Kim Parker, and they're embarking on this new adventure as college freshmen, and you kind of see them go through their ups and downs and their friendships and things like that throughout the journey. It's very goofy. It's a very goofy show.
Yeah. Well, and right, because Monique is Nikki, the mother,
mm-hmm.
and then Countess
plays Kim, the daughter. And I didn't realize this. It was the first spinoff from UPN because it's the spinoff of Moesha, like directly.
Right. Ah, okay. I see. I see.
Yeah, because Countess's character played Moesha's friend Kim.
Ah. I
Yes.
did not realize that the two of them carried over into that show together.
And something I didn't realize until I was rewatching the first episode was that was not the real pilot. There was a backdoor pilot in, I think, one of the third or fourth season of Moesha that kind of sets up the college. But the first episode we see is kind of a continuation of that.
And all right, so we'll quickly talk about in the first
Yeah.
episode, like, you know, real quickly, like summarizing what that specific episode is about, because that is part of the reason why I was like, oh man, like I like how naturally we're introducing the overall like hook of the show.
hmm
So yeah, do you want to give that quick summary or?
Yeah. So it's the start of the semester, their freshman semester for Nikki and Kim, and they're trying to find their way, make their way through campus, and so they both pledge the sorority AAA, AAA, particularly because it's a way to get involved on campus, but also their potential love interests at the time, Professor Ogilvy and T, are in the brother fraternity to that sorority, and it's basically them going through Hell Week. We see them go through, the rituals per se, and then a prank, and ultimately, it's also Kim and Nikki trying to establish themselves in this new dynamic because it's like from parent to child to now they're peers, and so we see that through that episode as well, and ultimately, I just love the way it starts. Like it's this goofy, like, oh, we're dressed alike. Oh no.
Yeah.
And ultimately they meet their pledge master, Regina, who's the head of, she's very prissy. And we have a cameo from Lark Voorhees from Saved by the Bell, who the one yes.
I'm so glad you said that. I'm so glad you said that. Because I was
Yeah.
watching it and I was like,
Yeah.
okay, now that woman,
Yep.
that's Lisa Turtle, but you don't
You
just
can't
assume that's Lisa
and I didn't
Turtle.
realize it.
But it was driving me. Well, you know what it was? It was a timing thing because I was like, I guess I was not expecting her. I don't know, she seemed younger than I would have expected
hmm
her to look, I guess. I don't know why I wasn't 100%. Timeline wise, I was like, that can't possibly be.
Yeah.
But
Because
it
I
was.
think, and I didn't realize it until I saw the credits. I was like, oh yeah, that's right. She's in the first like couple of episodes. But I think they were trying to establish, a lot of the background characters, and not to get ahead of ourselves, but like in season 4, the episode that you saw, like later, the only friends that Kim had, like her main friends, are T and Stevie, who are played by Jenna Von Owe and Ken Lawson, and just seeing how that
Yeah.
naturally maturates.
But then we all naturally meet them because of this whole sorority rushing thing in that first
Yes.
episode. So it's just this really beautiful, easy setup of like both introducing a mother and daughter that are so close they dress alike.
hmm
And they're going on this journey together. And it's established why, because when the daughter was born, the mom did not complete college. And so therefore, they're going, this is now now that her daughter's out of the house, it's a good time for her to go to school. So it like sets up naturally like who they are, why they're doing this, and then who the other key players are, both between like the friends and the professor and all of that. But none of it is like shoehorned in, and none of it feels like, there's some shows that start off and you're like, well, wait, if this is just an everyday of this person's life, why all of a sudden is all this happening just because I'm looking now? Like this really gives a natural like jumping off point in a great way.
Yeah, and it does something that I feel like Laverne and Shirley and all of the like Three's Company and all those shows do very well. It gives you a world where it's like, okay, anything could happen because this mother-daughter duo, they're very close. Now they're going to college together. Chaos ensues.
Right.
And we see that with like Nikki's crush on the professor. We see that in how Kim just wants to party and like have fun, and how they approach their different styles. You know what I mean? And it, I don't know, it just naturally is like a pot of just like hilarity,
Yeah.
like in a way that's very like over the top, but it doesn't feel cheesy.
Well, and I think the actresses are like, first of all, I love Monique. Like I was just like, why do I love Monique? Like she's, I don't know, but I think it's really kind of both of them like bring a lot of that good the chemistry is there, and they have a way of like they don't feel over the top, but they definitely feel big, and they feel big in a real way.
Yeah, it feels like people you know. It doesn't feel
Yes,
like, okay,
yes.
they're reading it from a script. Like, especially around that time, a character feels like a character, but
Yeah.
this felt like more rooted in reality than it was in like the world of the show.
Right, right. So then, okay, so we then skipped ahead and then watched season 4. And so that episode was called Dead Clown Walking.
Yes.
Now, I think what happened is I didn't watch any of the in between, but then I continued watching after. But so it's like 3 years later from when we first met them, still in school, but now like there's a solidified like friend group and reoccurring cast.
Yes. Oh, I almost forgot one important thing. Forgive me. I
Oh
didn't mean
yes,
to cut you
sorry.
off. But they go to Santa Monica College in California, Santa Monica, California, which
Yeah.
is where they go. So that's kind of the main hub of everything
Right.
outside of their home.
Right, exactly. Yes. And so then this next episode takes place after definitely Nikki has had her heart broken because the episode starts and she's very depressed.
Hmm.
And it's her birthday.
Yeah, her ex-husband, Kim's father, is remarried, and now she was like, I was supposed to be the first one to get remarried between the two of us. And it's her birthday, and she's feeling depressed, and she doesn't want to do anything. And so Kim, Stevie, T, and Nikki's other friend, Andell, who's also a character from Moesha, um, they try to plan a surprise party for her with the clown that used to show up to her childhood birthday parties and try to cheer her up. And it works to a point, and Nikki just wants him to recreate the feeling of nostalgia, have him do his old tricks on bouncing on the trampoline, which he does. But unfortunately, as you've heard by the title, the clown dies. He falls off the balcony.
I wrote,
And
oh
the reason
no,
I'm laughing,
Tebow.
poor Tebow the clown. And I always laugh because Countess Vaughn's performance at the end of it when he falls.
Okay, the sound effect that they play
Yes.
when this character falls is like so cartoony, but very funny. To like really clue you in, like, do not feel sad about this.
It's a goofy episode, and
Yeah.
I feel like this episode is probably my favorite episode of Countess Vaughn because it's like she's on 100. Like
When she hears about Bozo's dead too.
did too. And at the funeral, when there's speakers that come up from Tebow's life, Tebow the clown's life, and they all tell you how miserable he made them, how much they hated him, and things like that. And his son goes up, and he says, "You would never know how much a mean clown is. He used to beat me." And she goes, "You got beat too?" The delivery is so funny.
And then when she's like, when Nikki looks at her mom looks at her, and she's like getting scared.
But the ultimate favorite moment is the song that they sing at the funeral to honor Tebow. So she has a band called Freestyle Unity with Stevie and T. And so they're like, oh, we want to pay tribute to Tebow the Clown. And Nikki's like, yes, this is a somber moment. This would be great. And the song is called Mama Killed Him.
Yeah.
And that's the only lyrics.
Yeah. It's so good.
It's so good. So yeah, that just shoots it over the top.
Yeah, I think it was I think it was great. I think it was good to see in terms of like, you know, so it's interesting because the show was, like you said, like it came out in 1999 and it was still at this age of television where they would let storylines like kind of stay within itself and so that they could keep going without it being like having to get crazier and crazier. Like, a show that I really like is Community, but you could never, if you dip into Community like 4 seasons later, there's a lot of jokes you might not fully get or references or understanding like why characters are being a certain way. So for me, I definitely felt cozy watching this. There was something about at least like the time period that it put me back into with television. And then I think definitely like the actresses just felt warm. There was something in that way that you talk about, like they remind you of someone you know. They both reminded me of someone you know, and that family thing of like there's a way you can talk to and be with your family that you can't with other people. And there's something very, even when it sounds like you're making fun of each other or whatever, there's something still like warm about it.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Yeah.
We should get into why it was cozy for you. And I have a bunch of questions, but I don't know. Should we take a quick break before we get into some questions I have for you about this show?
Yeah, let's take a quick break and we'll be right back after these messages. And we're back with Happy Media.
So I want to first touch upon like set the scene for me. When did you first watch The Parkers? Did you watch The Parkers when it originally aired?
Yeah, I remember the premiere night. Yeah, I remember when it premiered. It was right after Moesha at 8:30, and we were at my grandma's house, and it was a huge event because what was happening was it was a new season of Moesha. Kim wasn't going to be on, and she was going to be doing this new show. And it was a huge deal at the time for people who were fans of Moesha or watched UPN. And it was a thing. And so I remember a lot of my older cousins and stuff like that, we were all like, yo, let's see what this is going to be about. And I remember it being like a block of TV. Like, it wasn't the first time UPN had a block of TV, but it was the first one where it was like, oh, it's something you know, and then this new thing that you kind of are familiar with. And so it was a huge shift at the time from me and my little, you know what I mean? And so it became a thing where it was like must see TV. Oh, okay, this is an event, and it became a weekly thing up until like even when Moesha ended, it was the Parkers at 8, and so it was like a thing that you had to watch, like like you remember Event TV, and so that was a huge thing. So I watched it during its run, and then but when it was ending, it got into reruns. And so I remember just going, like, even when I'd come home from school or random channel, like, it would be on. So it was just on all the time.
When you think about, like, more so the week to week when you would watch it, like, were you always watching it with all of your cousins, or were you more regularly watching it just, like, at your house? Like, who would you watch with? Like, how about this? When you picture little Thaddeus like watching the Parkers, what do you picture? Like what's the carpet? What's the room like? What are what comes to mind?
So it varies. So sometimes we'd be at the TV room in my grandma's house, or we would be in the living room at my house just watching it. And it'd be usually my siblings or, my aunt would watch with us sometimes, or my mom would like catch a glimpse here and there. But it was just one of those things where it was like, okay, you've come home, you've done your worksheet homework or whatever, and the Parkers are on. So it's like you sit down, you can watch it, and it's not something where it's like, oh, okay, I need to watch and make sure this isn't like, because people are like, oh, we know Moesha, we know the Parkers a little bit, cool, you're fine. Like, you know what I mean? It was comfortable watching, and also because the sitcom style, because it was a multicam, like how they did back in the day, and so
and it's a live
the
studio
lighting was a lot
audience,
wrong.
right?
Yeah, live studio audience, and so you hear it in the reactions to certain moments in the episodes, and so it kind of helps you feel in the environment with them.
Um Yeah, definitely. I didn't know, I didn't know if you had like a particular, like regular, like spot or routine or anything like that for like the viewing.
Yeah, I mean, we would. I don't think I've told you about the other. Anyway, but there's another show that like we would typically make sure we were in the room to watch, and so I just make sure like, okay, I'm on the couch, I'm
You got your
looking at it,
spot.
not too close.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
I got my spot. I'm laughing at the jokes, and you just like it's gonna be over by 8:27 or something,
Yeah.
and just go about your day. But yeah, it was part of a routine. Like, you'd watch The Simpsons and King of the Hill on Sundays, and then you'd watch The Parkers and Moesha or whatever on Monday. And yeah, we were a TV
Yeah.
family.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Did you when do you have a favorite character?
I think it's Kim and Nikki. It's difficult to because everybody. I think if I had a secondary character, it would be Andell
Mm-hmm.
because Andell plays so well off of Nikki, and then also kind of being like the straight man character with
Mm-hmm.
Kim.
Mm-hmm.
But I do think Kim and Nikki are so intertwined so well, where it's difficult to put one above the other to me.
Yeah, that's fair. That's fair. Yeah, I didn't know, particularly as a kid, like, sometimes you can like feel, I don't know, certain ways about the characters or whatnot. But yeah, I would feel like between the two of them, it would be hard to like root for one over the other. But I didn't know if over the seasons as well, if there were any like standout side characters that you're like, the show would not be the same without.
I feel like I think Andell only
Yeah.
because I think she comes in at the tail half of season one, but
Mm-hmm.
from season like that part on, like she's a polarizing character in terms of her friendship with Nikki, and even
Mm.
in I don't know if you saw it in the first episode, like how Stevie and Kim are like close.
Yes.
It's like that replicated, but I think because Andell has history interacting with Kim on Moesha, and then you realize, oh, she and Nikki are childhood best friends. You get the vibe of like you said, the actresses, like it doesn't feel forced. It feels like a real,
Yeah.
true, rooted friendship. So
Yeah.
that's probably what. If I had to pick a secondary character,
It
it would
would
be
be, yeah,
Andell.
her. That makes sense.
Yeah.
Um, so when you let me think of how to ask this. How I like to phrase the question
Yeah.
in a way that isn't like rambling. When the show was on, like because you watched it like as it was coming out. When the
Mhm.
show was on, was it a comfort show for you then, or was it something that you revisited later in life as a comfort, but at the time it was just something you were taking in. I mean, I guess because you watched it over extended amount of time. But I don't know if like the way you feel about it now is how you felt then, like the way it makes you feel.
That's a good question. I never thought about that,
Hmm.
and it's funny. I think it was always a comfort show but I didn't realize it until I was watching the reruns. But I think even in the like while it was still airing, it was such a like because it was a routine show that okay, must see TV. You sit down on Monday and you watch this. But I also think it was a comfort because you knew the characters and you knew the world that they were in, and you knew it wasn't gonna, even in the episodes that are kind of heavy, it's not like it weighs you down. It's like you're gonna laugh at some point.
Right.
And so I think it was a comfort for that reason. But I never considered it in the moment until later after, yeah, which is interesting. I appreciate you asking that.
Oh, of course. Yeah. I was, it's because I think because my viewing of it is obviously like in 2024 going back and watching television of 1999. And so as I said earlier, the parts of this that were comforting to me was feeling like this, there's times where you can watch like old sitcom pacing and it actually kind of feels depressing. And like, look, everyone enjoys what they enjoy. Personally, for me, Friends is the type of sitcom that when I revisit it, it doesn't make me feel good. There was something about the Parkers and the formatting of it that reminded me of like Hanging with Mr. Cooper, or like TGIF, like the way that the TGIF shows like made me feel like at the time, but it felt like the jokes were more modernized, and I don't know, it was just really working for me in that. I hate to say vintage because I don't want to call myself vintage, of course.
But it's of the time.
And so I didn't know if for you there was part of the like, oh, well, it's more bringing me back to that period. But it feels like it was just always there, like probably mostly because of the characters, Nikki and Kim, and then those actresses. So
yeah.
Here's a question. Is there a particular person in your personal life that you think of when you think of Nikki and Kim? Why are you laughing?
I'm laughing because I immediately I know who it is. It's my aunt who reminds me of Nikki because she's that same boisterous personality, like very life of the party, but also efficient and gets shit done, and just like in the first episode when she's telling Regina off,
yes,
because she's been pushed and they did the prank and they're trying to and Regina's threatening them, and Nikki's just like going off and standing her ground, whereas Kim's like, no, we don't have to do, no, you're gonna get a beat. Like, that's my aunt to a T, but also that loving figure, but also confident, knows themselves, and just like warm, but also funny and witty. And so it's, yeah, I think my aunt reminds me a lot of Nikki in that way.
Yeah. I felt like there was a teacher that Nikki reminded me of, that was particularly like, so in that first episode, that scene you referenced where she's telling her off, one of the things she says is like, these girls might not know themselves yet, but like, I know who I am. Makes a point to say that she's 36, which I appreciate. Yep. But that type of, your power coming from your experience and like standing up for yourself in a way that doesn't make others feel bad or isn't about like just like straight being scary or something like that. That type of personality that can like be powerful in a moment that like requires respect, but doesn't even is an earned respect of like, oh wow, like, yeah, you know what you're talking about and you're not making me feel shame by taking power of the situation. And like, there was something that in itself was a very comforting moment of her. It was like this moment where I was like, oh my God, like I am Kim and Nikki at the same time. Like this, like the duality, like there was almost a part where like, I don't know, Nikki, you really got that motherhood thing where, Nikki is Kim is going to be Nikki, and but in a good way, like in a way that feels like wholesome, and in the way that we all are, that makes you feel good about aging. And again, perhaps the moment in life that I'm in, but
and if you watch more episodes, like you'll see she's very young at heart, but not in a way where it feels corny, but in a way that it's just like, I'm still doing stuff, you know what I mean? I'm learning, I'm doing things, I'm reclaiming my education, I'm reclaiming my life, and just figuring that part out. And like you said earlier, she's at a point where her daughter's maturing and grown, and so now she's taking back the time that she didn't have because she was raising her kid. And that's part of the heartwarming side of the Parkers, because to me, as much of it is of the era of, so sitcoms, like you said, like Friends, where it's difficult to watch back. And the Parkers has some dated stuff, don't get me wrong.
Yeah. Well, I remembered about the Steve Harvey episode where the bank gets held up.
Yep.
Doesn't age too great. Now that I remember it, I was like, ooh. But sorry to not interrupt you.
Keep going. Go ahead.
Well, no, I mean, I was just saying that, I mean, I think that of course there are things of its time and things that, very much like hit differently. And even for me, there was a lot of interesting things that like, from a 2024 perspective, if you're viewing it for the first time, is like, wow, this is like an, interesting choice. Like, there's this one at least there's one reoccurring white character on the show, a
Yes.
woman. First of all women. Like,
Yes.
all of the main characters, I mean, there's the guys that are the send-ups, like there's the professor and there's T and like other guys that like come in and out, but like it is Monique, Countess, and Jenna are like these like three, they are in the very first episode and establish themselves as a unit. I was really, really glad to see that Jana Von Oy was still in it in season 4.
Yes, and I feel like, and I initially I felt weird about Jenna Von Oy being there because originally I was like, oh, it's a token white character, but she doesn't really play in. You know what I mean? The majority of the show is focused on the mother-daughter dynamic, and so
Yeah.
she's there as a support in the same way like a lot of sitcoms will have like the token black friend.
Yeah.
I feel like it's a reversal, but it doesn't feel like a token. It's just like, okay, she's there, and this is who Kim is friends with in this dynamic.
Yeah.
And so it works. It doesn't, like, what I thought initially as a kid was like, oh, here's this throwaway character, but it works for the situation. So
It does. And
yeah.
I like, she plays off of, she's like kind of a partner in crime to Kim, but I actually think she plays off of Nikki really well in that way. You know, kind of like, on Full House, there was a character, Kimmy, that like had a very specific relationship with the dad that, I don't know, it's not to say that these two are the same, it's not the same, but like it's that character, that role that she plays of the kid's best friend has to be able to play off the parent very well. And so, you know, I think that they do that, and that was why it made sense.
And again, because they're in college, there's a lot more that they can flex with in that relationship. And there's some episodes where you see Stevie and Nikki's dynamic as well, and how it's very funny. Like everybody interacts with everybody, and it's just the way they intermingle. It doesn't feel like, okay, so we got to put these two together. We haven't had them together in a scene in a minute. So.
Right, exactly. All right, well, I know you pulled some trivia for us, so let's take one last break, and then I wanna hear some cold hard facts about the show.
All right, and we'll be right back. And welcome back, and we're talking about the Parkers, and I have some trivia.
All right, so tell me some fun things about the show.
So, I have 3 pieces of trivia. So first, it was the #1 sitcom in Black households for all 5 seasons.
Wow, good for them.
And also part of that is because of UPN, because again, it was a UPN sitcom, and you know, like there was the According to Jim's and the Will and Graces and whatnot on other networks. But I think because UPN was such a hub for Black families, and which again also why it's it's a huge resurgence thing, and why it got syndicated soon. And although it's not known in the masses, it's a huge hit in the streets because it was on a network where young people were looking to, and so I think that kind of factors into its longevity. So I just wanted to shout that out.
Oh, I love that. That's great to know.
Okay, so I have 2 questions.
Okay.
Which cast member got their start on Star Search? Is it A, Monique, B, Countess Vaughn, C, Dorian Wilson, or D, Jenna Von Oy?
Well, I happen to know the answer, which is B, Countess Vaughn.
How do you know that?
Because I had, I'll tell you why, because I had to know how old she was when she started filming. So I had to go to her Wikipedia. I had to know. I couldn't help myself.
I really thought I had you stumped with that.
I'm so sorry.
I was like, oh, she's not going to know this.
Oh, man. You know, I have to come clean about it only because, too, I can't play it off like, oh, yeah, I'm like, I really fucking know Countess Vaughn
I watch Star Search all the time.
Yeah, exactly.
Ed McMahon was my favorite person. Okay, so I do have another question.
Okay. I might not know the answer. I had to know how old she was. That was it.
Okay, so this is a little more difficult. So, as I mentioned earlier, Nikki and Kim go to Santa Monica College in the show. But there are 3 Santa Monica College alums in real life who guest starred on the show.
Oh, my gosh.
See if you can name There are a lot of famous people who've gone to SMC. Arnold Schwarzenegger.
I don't even.
Oh, give me three names of three famous people who you think would have been on the Parkers.
I know Steve Harvey was on.
I went to Santa Monica College. Okay, I'm not gonna count Steve Harvey.
I mean, like, are we talking big names here?
Well, one's a big name. I'll give you a hint.
Okay.
For the three. One's a singer.
Mm-hmm.
One's an actor. One's an athlete.
Whoa. Okay. All right. The athlete, I don't know if I'm gonna.
You can get three. You can get 3 hints. 2 more hints.
I don't know.
You can ask 2 more hints for any of them.
Oh goodness. Okay. The actor's male, right?
Sure.
What do you mean, sure?
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. He is.
Are they always male? Was it RuPaul?
No, that's a good guess.
Oh,
no.
Shit. Okay. The way you said sure, I was like, oh, is that a clue?
Oh no! I was like, I should have said famous. Never mind. But yeah.
Is the singer female?
Yes.
Is the singer older?
Yes.
I don't know. I have no idea. I can't even begin to guess because I don't even know who went to Santa Monica College.
That's okay.
I was thinking.
Give me 3 people that you think any 3 people, and then I'll just tell you who it is.
Okay. Well, because I was like, I could see RuPaul on this.
It does make sense, and I'm surprised RuPaul was not on the Parkers at all. Which
was Queen Latifah on the show? Did she ever? There was somebody who did. Wait, there was somebody. Shoot. See now,
she was on Eve.
That's okay. This is just like an embarrassing white people question because I'm sort of like, well, okay, it's between 1999 and 2004.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm trying to think of, like, I'm coming at this from such an industry perspective of, like, who's the right amount of fame.
Mm-hmm. It's like asking next time you ask me who's on the Drew Carey show, and then
I don't even know who was on the Drew Carey show.
Me either. Okay, so now
outside of Drew Carey. All right, give me the singer. Give me the singer.
Tina Marie.
Oh, okay. All right. Okay. See that? Okay, that's the other part of this is like, so we were talking about Full House, which is not. I did watch that as a kid, but it is not a show that I love.
Yeah.
But what I was thinking about with that is that the musical guest that would be on that show all the time was the Beach Boys, which in the 90s was not. They were not pop. That was not their time. And so I was trying to think, like, because there is this thing in sitcoms where, like, sometimes the famous people that come on aren't famous in that moment. So I was like, how do I measure this of, like, which direction would these guest stars go in?
It's funny you mentioned that because there was an episode of Jeffersons I was watching the other day. Billy D. Williams was on, but it was like he was.
Do you want to know something so fucking funny? Is that Billy D. Williams was going to be my guess for the actor.
I'll take that as the guess.
Okay.
It is actually Kel Mitchell.
No.
He plays a recurring character.
Yeah, for Kel. That's so. Oh my God.
He plays a recurring character.
Oh, I love that.
It's so hilarious.
Good. I'm so glad because I love Kel.
He's so good in it.
Oh, that's awesome.
And your guess for the athlete.
Okay. Are they currently... Okay. Would they have currently been playing their sport at the time or were they retired at that point?
Definitely playing at the time.
But they don't play anymore.
I don't think this person does.
Are they a commentator?
You want to know the
now?
sport?
Yeah, I want to know the sport.
Boxing.
Oh my God. Is it Ali? Like, oh no. Is it Mike Tyson? Is it a female boxer?
Yes.
Is it Ali's daughter?
Which one?
Oh fucking Christ! Come on, that's not close enough. It is. What's her name?
Actually, I didn't realize this. Two of his daughters are on the show,
oh.
Layla and Maymay Ali. So yes, you got that right. You got 1 out of 3.
I barely got it. You're being generous, is what it is.
But listen, and I didn't realize it because it was just. Oh wait, Layla's the only one who went to SMC. Never mind. So Layla is the one. But yes.
Yeah.
But yeah, 2 of his daughters are on the show, but Layla is the athlete from SMC.
All right.
So
that's so funny that they went to that school. I love it. That's really good.
Also, Ryan Seacrest went to SMC.
I guess I guess that makes sense. Like that's like that's if you grow up in LA, that's where you probably would likely to go.
I
That's cool.
guess. But that is my trivia for this episode.
I love
I
it.
know we're keeping it brief, but that's what I got. And yeah, thank you for letting me do the Parkers. And here's to the first of many duo episodes.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much for sharing the Parkers with me. It definitely brought me comfort, and yeah, it took me back to a time, and there was an attitude and just a way that people were treating each other that was a cozy bit of way. You know, if you're feeling like, especially if you're missing your family, I could see this being a really, really cozy watch. So
It's a good, like, if you need nostalgia, but if you need like people
yeah,
and warmth, this is
this
that
is
show.
it.
So
Yeah. Yeah. Well, it was a great share. Thank you, bud.
thank you so much. And thank you for listening to Happy Media, the podcast all about media that makes us happy. I'm Thaddeus Danquah. You can find me at Thaddeus Danquah on Instagram and Twitter.
I'm Ash Beecher, currently not on social medias, but, find me wherever your podcasts are.
Yes, and you can follow Happy Media wherever. And if you have a suggestion for us that you want us to cover, email us happymediapod@gmail.com. This is our first one. Yay!
Yay. All right. Well, stay cozy, everybody. And we'll see you next time.
See you next time.